Greetings, followers of Sauron. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to RimWorld Death of the Isle, Episode 7, A Great Storeroom. Also a little heads up about this episode and the following 5. I'm a little under the weather, so if I don't sound like myself, I apologize in advance. First order of business for you early birds. Voting for the next major project. And let me move that poll. There we go. So I had mentioned last stream about the possibility of using this deep water as defenses. So that would be option number 1. It would be considerable excavation, but if you think it's necessary, I'd be happy to do it. We could also set up dining and recreation somewhere around here to allow our corsairs to dine. Pairing with that, likely we would also need to set up specific dining rooms for goblins versus everybody else, because the goblins do not like to be in decent dining or recreation rooms. So we would need 2 sets, one for Uruk-hai and elves and humans, and one for goblins. But that's okay. We could also continue with agriculture and food storage. We still have more rich soil to spread to. However, we are heading into a if we take a look at the terrain tile here, it's not farmable in sort of mid to in the winter, and we are heading into the winter pretty soon. We can work on a separate workshop specifically for magical items, separating out the workshop of war with the workshop of magic, or focus on organizing and storage. We have a lot of tainted gear, and we do not have it in our ideology that we want to wear that stuff, so we could try to set it up so that it's streamlined to be destroyed, or craft better equipment. We do have a lot of magicite, which is sort of the material needed to craft magical stuff. We're getting a lot of magicite both from mining out the slate and granite from the mountains, or limestone from the mountains, and also from the from Thomas modifying the soils here. So that is another thing that we could do with our magicite. So what we'll work on will be left up to you, and you got another. I'll extend the timer up there. Another 2.5 minutes to vote on that. So we did have Thomas join, and Thomas is he's an elvish geomancer. So we are using him to make the soil more fertile in order to grow things that will allow us to sort of go to war, right? So growing things for mana potions and fabrics and the like. And then we also have Silodin, who is our slave, who has rebelled and lost a leg and a lung. If you're wondering, it is possible through the magic research tree to make gems of arcane insight and gems of physical insight. So what this does is imbues the user with the spirit of warrior or the spirit of a mage, granting them the physically adept or magically adept abilities. So what that essentially does is allows someone that does not have proclivities towards might or magic to become a fighter or a mage of some sort. So it is possible that at some point, Silodin here is offered the ability to become maybe one of a full-fledged member through the construction of gems. With that said, a rebellious slave might not ever deserve it, but whether that's true or not will be left up possibly to you guys. Dead Gold, Mike, Moxie, thank you for the 3 subs, and Crimson, Rust, and Sty for the gifted subs. Cheers. It's also worth mentioning, if you haven't figured it out already, but YouTube doesn't see the titles and all that I'm still under the weather, so if I sound a little weird, it's because my voice isn't fully back yet. Oh, yes. Lovely illnesses triggered by daycare germs. Just how it goes, I suppose. So we have a hunting work site nearby. So it looks to me like storage and organization and dining and recreation are nearing tied. They literally tied. And instead of trying to work on both, splitting my attention, what I think I'll do is I'll flip a coin. So heads will be dining and recreation, and tails will be, okay, it was tails. So storage and organization. So one of the things that I think is going to be necessary is we have a ton of tainted stuff. And we're going to need to deal with that tainted stuff much more quickly. So one of the simplest ideas is to just dump a bunch of the tainted stuff out here. So that we have apparel that is tainted. And all tainted apparel will go there. And that's fairly close to the slate furnace here, allowing us to make a quick path between tainted apparel and the furnace. Now, as we get attacked by greater numbers of enemies, we can make some decisions. We can decide not to butcher them, because butchering human-like, our ideology doesn't really care what we eat. So cannibalism is acceptable, but it isn't preferred necessarily. You know, man flesh is nice, but all flesh is nice. You can live it that way. So my point being, at some point it might make sense to haul corpses out to the lagoon, or the bay, or whatever you want to call this out here, rather than butchering them, just to save us on the labor of having to deal with the insane amount of tainted apparel. Now, one of the unfortunate things is a lot of this tainted apparel is also magical. I did decide, however, that Corsairs don't prefer to wear tainted apparel. And the reason I did that was that it very, very quickly, you will become like ridiculously overpowered if tainted apparel is allowed and preferred, because the RimWorld magic and the Lord of the Rings mods have enemies show up in like really high quantities of amazing gear. So it was mostly for balancing reasons. All right, Tal leveled up. Let's go ahead and have him try to get better elementals. I don't particularly love elementals. I don't think they're all that useful compared to defensive pylons, but they do look cool. Crimson, I'm going to give you smooth draw so that you can shoot arrow storms more frequently. And then Thomas, I believe you leveled up as well. And we're going to have you maintain the earth sprites. And it also looks to me like all of those zones that had earth sprites have fully improved the soil. So my plan is to try, maybe I won't even do it like this. My plan is to try to set it up so that the earth sprite, the growing zones are nice and rectangular. Just so that it's much easier to manage them from like an organizational standpoint. So I'm going to have Thomas sort of square this nugget. Maybe even, this is a temporary room, so once this room is gone, maybe even squaring it here as well. Having it be all very uniform so that we can lay out fields of all the same size very easily. There we go. Continuing with the earth sprites. And the other thing is, like, the earth sprites, they create magicite, so that in itself is very helpful. So we are smelting the iron into steel with some of the coal that we got, and then breaking down the tainted apparel for organization. So I'll update the priority. Work on storage and organization. So if we are butchering human likes, One thing that we could do is to have a slate furnace dedicated over somewhere around here just for the tainted apparel. And I think what I'll do is I'll poll you guys about that. Should we set up a specific facility for butchering human-like? And if not, what I'll do is I'll just work on a storage room. So if you're wondering what that is, right now we have a little butchery here. But we would want a room with the furnaces and tainted apparel storage nearby so that we can just burn through a lot of the tainted apparel so that we aren't so cluttered full of tainted apparel, because it's going to become a problem if left unchecked. And if not, I'll be setting up a storage room just to store this kind of stuff, because it doesn't need to be in here. We don't need... This entire wooden cabin was the original facility that we lived in, and I want to move out of it sooner than later. Also, in terms of storage, it might make sense to expand the kitchen that we already have, because it is not really meeting the capacity needs for food. As you can see, food is spilling over everywhere. So it would be good to have the room for high volumes of food, especially if we're trying to feed an army at some point. We're getting lots of iron. We don't yet know how to smelt steel. That comes a lot later in the medieval research, and it requires dungeon delving. So for now, we can just rely on iron, which is fine. And it looks like you guys don't want me to have a specific facility for human legs. So I'm trying to visualize what this is going to look like in terms of storage. So let's say that we have a magical workshop somewhere around here. This being a magical workshop, more or less sharing a wall with the workshop of war, keeping them separate just for role-playing reasons. We could then add storage. So we have this for heat if we ever need to tap it. So we could add storage sort of in this area as a general storage room. And obviously it clips into the wooden facility, but we would get rid of that. So I think that makes sense. We're going to want parts of this workshop exposed to the outside for chunks and raw resources that we don't necessarily need to store in a storage room. However, just for the beauty of it, which is a weird word to use for like orcs and goblins, but for the beauty of it, we might want to have our storage inside anyway. But I do like the idea of interconnecting everything like that. Let's resolve that. Next research project. This will also be left up to you guys. So as far as magic goes, we have just researched arcane crafting, but we don't yet have an arcane forge. So that would be the arcane forge. For agriculture, we would start to research basic agriculture, which gives us a millstone and allows us to plant a wider variety of crops, which will be good for food fulfillment. But also like a smoker or a grill, you know, so we can start to do like smoked cannibalism meats or grilled meats or whatever. Weaponry. There's a huge amount of options for weaponry. There's all these weapons here, as well as bows. Then there's the mankind weapons, the elvish weapons, and the same with the armory. Follows the same sort of idea. Or other. Something that I have not yet included in that. So we'll start to lay out the storage room. And I hope this is large enough, but I do intend to have it full of shelves, even though shelves make life a little bit more difficult for organization. And this will clip into this area here. So some of this room is intentionally going to be broken down and moved so that the new storage room can be constructed in its place. It would also be wise at some point to move the tanning racks, hay racks, that kind of stuff in the actual crafting room. And if we need to, expanding the crafting room to accommodate all the space. Icarus, thank you for the resub. Oh, I didn't know that I had shopping orders down here. There we go. Now Crimson should be working on clearing out the space for storage. And MB Manson, thank you for the resub too. Now I'm deciding to go with the very quick to open and close wood doors, mostly because the security of our little fortress is mostly with the external walls. I don't think that we need to protect ourselves from the inside as much as, you know, in other series where there's like drop pod raiders and things like that. It's not the types of attacks I expect here, I hope. So we'll continue with magic research, the Arcane Forge. And I picked a 15 room because it's not going to require pillars, and that way it can just be full of storage. Is there a mage class that drops meteors in the series? Yes, fire mages can do that. And, well, it depends on what you mean by meteor, but Thomas can as well, but it's like a meteor to be mined out. So it's slightly different, but same sort of idea, I suppose. So the center row is the roofless row here. And what I could do is I could just have it like a wall there. Yeah. I kind of like that. Put a roof here. And I think what I'll do is I will work on flooring first, which then involves a lot more. Let's go with granite. All the other floors so far have been granite floors. So we're going to need to cut a whole lot of granite blocks for that. That's way more than we currently have. And then to make sure that we're working efficiently, get some lights. Now, it looks to me like there aren't... Is this for granite chunks? No, this is for smeltables. No, it's for granite chunks. So we'll probably actually have to mine some granite out. So I don't believe there is much left. we had been mining a little bit out over here, but if we're going to want more granite for our projects, Sheil will probably have to do some mining. Or Thomas, they both can mine. Alright, that's probably not perfectly illuminated, but it's well enough. That it won't slow down production speed. Oh, that is a lot of cotton. Do we have a... Oh, we do. We have spin cotton. Perfect. So we are no longer allowing sowing. In about 5 in-game days, it's going to be too cold for plants to thrive in the ambient temperature. I'm going to move the tanning racks. Though it feels weird to put them indoors, I'll have them next to the tailor bench. And we are stocking up pretty high full of fabrics here. We have lots of cloths, which is going to be useful once we have the Arcane Forge, because we can start to make mana weave, which is a fabric better for magical cloaks and hats and the like, because it has magical properties of its own. Yo, thank you for the sub. I'm Micah. Cheers. All right, I see him. Hear him chipping away. And it seems to me like I'm going to put Thomas on crafting. Crimson is pretty busy tending the farm fields because there's so much to do there. The other thing I could do is to start to do the organization. Now, I think what I'm going to do is to have the shelves be organized as well. So within the storage, we'll have shelves specifically for leathers, some for like tars, some for bones. So there's a little bit of sub-organization as well, because a giant room full of random stuff can be pretty difficult to sort through when looking for specifics. It would also be wise to include some sort of concept of an armory. Because we have Soldin the slave, anytime he is around weapons, as you can see, his slave rebellion interval drops from 1.5 years to like 23 days. And that's just because he's in the same room with like a knife or a bow or something, and encourages him to be rebellious. I don't really mind the beating slaves unconscious and tearing off limbs, but like, in terms of productivity, it's pretty bad for productivity to have to, you know, to do that. So, so to that end, it would be good to have like a sort of a specific area for weapons, so that it isn't so much of a future problem if our slave population continues to grow. So there's a bunch of different types of storages in this mod set. One of the obvious ones I could do, which would start to make things look nicer, is to have deep timber, bricks, and raw wood storages, maybe right outside of the main workshop, pushing back these slate and granite a little bit so that they're not pathing blockers. Maybe what I'll do is I'll keep timber and raw wood inside, even though I think on these deep storages, it doesn't matter. But the reason to keep them inside is, like, if you want them aged and not weathered, you would, in real life, keep them indoors. There we go. Now we're starting to organize our blocks, which is good. Oh, I thought that I set this up for no sowing, but clearly not. I think we were actually allowing the rice to be sown just because it grows so quickly. But at some point, that's probably a bad idea. It is funny that the goblins want vile bedrooms and vile recreation rooms, but then also complain if they eat without a table. It feels very strange to me. Like, they want to hate their existence, but tables is just a bridge too far. Something like that. Gotta eat from a dirty table, yeah. That's what it seems like. Just a little silly. Oops, that is not what I meant to do. We've got about maybe a little over, let's say, a third of this tiled up. We're definitely cranking on the granite stone carving. And then, as I mentioned, the other organization that probably needs to get addressed is the lack of food storage in here. It's more the fact that I'm just, like, growing too much. We have an overproductive farm. So, interestingly, I think I need to see to that. Shrink the farm, or plant things that take a lot longer to mature, like Devil Strand. Not that we have Devil Strand research unlocked yet, but that would be something to do when we have it unlocked. There was another thing I wanted to do, which was to, once we have a little bit more cut blocks, is to start with outdoor pathing. So that we can move about this facility, which is really only going to grow so that walking between structures doesn't have us going into the dirt. Maybe even illuminating it as well. It's too bad... The one downside of not including the Lord of the Rings dwarves in here is the Lord of the Rings dwarves had, like, this sort of creepy green light, which almost looked like a necromantic type of light. That would have been nice to include. I mean, I suppose I could modify and add it in, but it's weird that it's like a dwarf light, so I left it out intentionally. Colonists idle. That probably means I am out of granite stone to cut. So we don't have a specific facility dedicated towards butchery. It's probably something that we're not going to count on too much. Human-like butchery for our protein source. We can treat it like a delicacy. Even perhaps making lavish meals only when we have man flesh. And then offering the man-flesh lavish meals only to the highest class of citizen in our little fortress. Depending on the overhead mountains over here, not that overhead mountain is really an issue in this series at all. Overhead mountain doesn't play a role because there's not the insect hive faction. But we could also consider putting the magical workshop sort of over here. Because as I look at the regular workshop and look at the... I think it actually might make sense to split up textiles and non-textiles from the workshop. Because the tannery process and the textiles is going to take up a lot of room. So I think that's what I'm going to do, even though it's not really within the scope of what I'm currently working on. Because of the tanning racks and leather and cloth storages, it's a lot, and it's going to start cluttering up everything if I don't take care of it now. That and all the iron, especially if we're going to be smelting down enemy armaments. We're going to get a lot of iron really quickly. Where do I have Psycho Tea? Oh, there it is. Wait, what? How are we making Psycho Tea? What? Bill? Oh, maybe it was on the old, yeah, I think it was the old bill. So, new drug policy. We are starting to get Psycho Tea. We have a lot of tea leaves. There's a lot of tea leaves just laying out. So I'm going to do, if mood is below, let's say 70, we'll do tea. And then as we get beer, mead, wine, etc., we can expand that. But a little bit extra morale is kind of a nice thing to have. Avoiding those mental breaks. So for now, the plan is to not do anything with this room. This room is just a work in progress eventually for textiles. But that's outside of the scope of what we're working on now, so I'm just going to leave it empty without a floor. We almost have the main storage floored up. And then I'll try to put some... I'll try to be thoughtful about how things are stored in there. But right now, I probably shouldn't have deleted that stockpile, but raw resources of... I suppose really all we have right now is the ingots, the iron ingots, and that was just overflow. I do want to aim for having no raw resources like outside on the ground, if possible. I feel like we're constantly taking on mega projects. It is a lot of work. So Arcane Forge is nearly done. If you would like for me to research something continuing in the magical tree, feel free to vote. Like magical equipment, scribing or enchanting. If you want me to go towards agriculture or weaponry or armor, feel free to vote that direction as well. Now there was a... Oh, elemental assault. Okay. There is a elemental rift here. So this is going to continually spew out elementals for us to fight. And I don't want... Oh, you know what? Soldan's going to be too slow. I want to close the doors so that the elementals don't get a free access point. I'm going to try to get Sildan to close the elemental portal. And then also, let's say, Tal, because you're already low on magic, consume a potion. So Shield's coming up here to close this door, forcing the elementals to take an alternative path. These elementals are fighting the defensive pylon. Thomas, how do you go with summoning more sentinels? Now, the issue that I think we're going to run into is that they're going to be chasing Crimson, so he's going to have to do some hit-and-run type fighting. There we go. Okay, it's chasing the upper sentinels. So Sildan, or Crimson rather, you move at 5-5. They move at 5, so you do outrun them. Because I'm going to want to put some space between me and them so that I can have some wiggle room when it comes down to hit and run tactics on the portal. And then I'm going to have Shield come down here and try to phase strike the portal once it doesn't have defenders around it. Tal's coming down to try to summon elementals to fight the elementals, which sounds a little weird, but it's just the way it is. And next research project will be something in the agricultural tree. So I'm going to start to research basic agriculture. Oh, you know what? Maybe Smoker. Come on, shield. That's not what I told you to do, like, at all. There we go. This portal is hardy. Thomas and Tal managed to take out these elementals up here. I'm going to have them come southbound in support. Shield is getting swamped. Backup is coming. He's not getting all that hurt, because, oh, now he's starting to get hurt. I'd like to get him out of there. Crimson is really laying in this portal, though. But having summoned backup is going to be better than having Shield have to tank, because Shield doesn't really have good armor yet. I'm going to get him out of there. Summoning my own elementals. There we go. Now I have water elementals fighting fire elementals. Sounds about right. And I'll do a defensive pylon right there. I'm very arcane weak with Tal, so I'm going to want Tal to fall back with shield. And, okay, the portal has collapsed. Good. Thank you for tuning in to RimWorld Death of the Isle, which originally streamed live on Twitch, January 28th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below, but please keep in mind that the details about this series are already provided in the description. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com, or the description of this video have a link to it. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. Hope to catch you in next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Corsairs.